Yeah, I think one piece of advice, or the first piece of advice I was ever given a long time ago when I hired my first employee, was you got to trust people to make mistakes because you can't.
Right. Totally. And yeah, and you might make a mistake doing it anyway, right? And you're more likely to do that if it's the 97th to 100th hour of the week for you. And so sometimes someone else who maybe has less experience than you is going to be better at doing what you're doing because they can actually focus on it.
Very true. Welcome to A Founder's Life. I'm your host, Leo Gestetner. On this show, we dive into the real stories behind the highs and lows of entrepreneurship and how we pursue a more balanced and meaningful life along the way. This podcast is sponsored by Thankz, helping founders like us scale with reliable remote talent. Email founders@thankz.com, that's THANKZ.com, with subject line of Founder's Life for $1,000 off your first month. Now, I'm excited today to be joined by Fletcher Wilson, who is the founder of Throne. Fletcher, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks, Leo. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here. Yes. So my name is Fletcher Wilson. I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Throne. This is my second company. And I'd say the common link is I like to find, let's just say, unsexy problems that a lot of people are afraid to touch but might be really hard to solve and dig in and solve them. I come from a mechanical engineering and product design background. I've worked on solving two different problems. One in the medical space, a nasty issue that some people have called chronic venous insufficiency, where their leg veins struggle to pump blood back to the heart. We had this really cool little product, ultrasound guided catheter that could go in and fix people's vein valves for them. It's plumbing. It's all related, as we'll get into Throne, which is also plumbing related, but happy to talk more about that. Learned a ton through a 10-year project, and then that company is still going strong. And now I'm on to public bathroom infrastructure with Throne. So with Throne, we are looking to solve this very difficult and persistent problem throughout many different cities where people often don't have a nice or clean or available bathroom to use when they need to when they're out and about. I'm happy to talk more about it, but that's the top line.
Excellent. So talk to us just a little bit more about sort of that journey that brought you to where you are today. And then, talk a little bit more about Throne. I think it's very clever what you're doing, and I've never seen anything else quite like it. So love to hear.
Sure. So I was educated in mechanical engineering and product design, as I mentioned, and I was lucky enough to kind of get brought out to California at Stanford to focus on need finding. So I was involved in a program actually after grad school called Stanford Biodesign, and I think this is where the most salient lessons I got sort of from my educational years came, and that is need finding as a way to start any sort of business, and that's start on the problem. It's the exact opposite of a tool looking for a solve, or a hammer looking for a nail. So this program allowed us perfect access to. This was a medical focused program, but I think these lessons work for everyone. We had access to any procedure room, patient visit. We were sort of in white coats in the background and able to just watch for 6 months at Stanford Hospital and look for problems to solve. And we wrote down hundreds and thousands of problems and need statements, we called them. And we weren't even allowed to think about how to solve the problem until we had validated that the need was truly a deep need and and an important business need. And that's where that sort of first company sprung about. But sort of when COVID hit and that company was doing well, but also sort of on the verge of a pivot and a long pause due to many elective procedures being slowed down or paused for many years during that time. I was lucky enough to have my mentor come in and sort of take the reins for the next 5 years of that company, while I had become obsessed with the problem of public bathroom infrastructure. And in the same way, kind of really thought hard about which angle to go at the need. And the basic problem is it's hard to find a bathroom in most modern cities. And I started talking to people, interviewing people. If you're ever in a Uber or Lyft, ask the driver, where do you go to the bathroom while you work? And that's what I did for about a year straight, as just an example of the type of question I would ask, or the type of person I would ask questions to. And you get these, you'd think it's an offensive question, maybe 98% of the time the person was perfectly happy that I was asking and interested to tell me highly strategic ways They would, use hotel lobbies. They would gas stations. I would go to this McDonald's at the off lunch hour. And it became clear that's one kind of micro example, but it became clear with talking to police officers, people struggling with homelessness, athletes, parents with young children, and really all of the long tail of society that this is a really deep problem, a systemic issue that needs a broad solution that can work in any city and solve multiple different types of problems. And so I was able to put together a founding team focused on solving this kind of funky problem again, but from a core need. People aren't going to stop needing bathrooms as COVID ended and people are more trying to stay out and about. We saw this as a great mechanism to help do that and solve a very core and private issue for people with a smart solution that kind of works in the more modern world. And happy to talk a little more about that.
And where are there thrones now? What cities have your thrones?
Yeah. And first, just to give listeners an image in their mind, a throne is a box, a nice box, but a modular room, so to speak, an ADA compliant. So it's quite big, actually. Solar powered modular bathroom that can be placed anywhere. The original idea was hotel lobby bathroom that can be placed in a Home Depot parking lot in an hour or less. That was the original product statement. We aren't in any Home Depot parking lots, but you get the general idea. Infrastructure agnostic was one of the core pieces of this, meaning not having to connect to waste and water systems so that we can get these down immediately and flexibly and without the sort of, let's call it location anxiety that plumbed permanent infrastructure can make. But this is just a really nice bathroom, flushing toilet, running water, sink, HVAC. We have a welcome voice, various other attributes, and it's always clean. That's sort of the key brand attribute. But to answer your question, you can find one of our current 72 deployed thrones in Los Angeles, Washington, D.C., the Bay Area in California, and sort of the Ann Arbor, Detroit area. So we are in 4 geographic markets and looking to expand quickly.
And are they generally designed to sort of sit there long term? Is that the aim, or do you also offer them as sort of event type space?
Yeah, and I appreciate that you didn't use the P word, the porta potty word. So and we are not focusing on events right now, and really the form factor of the first product that we brought to market isn't well suited for events. We are looking for long term, but really think of it as a flexible fleet. So we are selling a city, a public bathroom solution. So we have some cities, Ann Arbor is an example, that is actually moving them around seasonally as sort of the needs of the population changes from winter to summer. But in general, our contracts are long term, and most thrones themselves sit in the same location for years, but they don't have to. And that's a nice piece. And I can get into the why on some of those product decisions, but hopefully that answers that question.
And are they generally having one in a place or multiple together?
Usually one. And we have 4 or 5 locations that have 2 when sort of we're getting so much usage in a day that it makes sense to have a second. But in general, we're looking for kind of these bathroom deserts to create bathroom islands, and in a lot of situations, traditional public bathroom built infrastructure, makes sense to put 10 bathrooms in one location, but that's actually quite inconvenient in, let's say, a downtown shopping district where it might even be better to have one every 2 blocks, or in a park system where you want a bathroom scattered throughout. So we went with the sort of modular approach, but yes, you can always stack multiple next to each other as needed.
I seem to remember reading something about one of the clever things you've done is almost copying the sort of Uber Lyft type model, which is the person using the bathroom sort of gets rated as well.
Yeah, so the problem we were trying to solve there, as we were talking to customers early on, was that of safety and security. So very often a city would tell us, we tried to put bathrooms in so-and-so location, and it just caused too many issues of nefarious activity, to put it one way. And our police were constantly being called there, or people feeling unsafe. And so our early pilots were really geared around more behavioral science and how can we create a loyal and conscientious user base and some form of accountability for the user. That is the tricky problem in public bathroom infrastructure and honestly, public infrastructure in general. And the solution we settled on, which has various facets, some of which people initially hear and are uncomfortable with, but we are very thoughtful in protecting the privacy of users. Nothing is more sort of private than using the bathroom, right? But what we were trying to do is just create that tiny thing in the back of your head that makes you take care of the bathroom and leave it the way you got there. And that's really what we're trying to do. And so as people go into the bathroom, there are multiple ways to enter. You don't have to have a phone, but most of our users enter with a phone. You do not have to download an app. We have an app for people that want to know where bathrooms are all over the city, but most people don't use the app. The way to get in is you scan a QR code. It pre-populates a text message on your phone. You hit one button, send. The message will say, send this message to use the throne. You hit send. The door slides open automatically. A welcome voice lets you come into a clean bathroom. But the first thing, and one of the reasons we have this phone entry, is it asks you, how clean is the throne? And by answering that question, we are able in real time to create a clean risk score. And then we also run a cleaning crew in all of our distributed locations that are basically roaming around finding the most important throne to clean next based on our user reviews and comments. People can also write text, and people like to give us in hilarious detail their insights as to what's going on inside the throne. And we love that they do that. And so we're able to create both qualitative and quantitative metrics around the cleanliness of the units. We are also attaching nothing except that user identity, which is the phone number in the case of the QR SMS entry, to that use, which is helpful. So people can let us know how it's doing. And a lot of people ask us, okay, so are you blocking a person just because the next person rates it down? And the answer is no. We are more taking a broad view at what are the times of day? When do we need to clean or staff service more on certain days? And in general, the reason we're asking this question is just to keep the thrones really clean. But there are times when very egregious activity happens. Maybe people refuse to leave, illicit activity that is fairly obvious. Sometimes even our customers will tell us. So when the people that use the unit at 242 were doing X, Y, and Z, we are very careful, but we warn and block users that repeatedly kind of break the terms and conditions of the throne and aren't using it just for a bathroom. And so it's not like we are keeping, this user is a 3.8 user and in exactly the sort of Uber, Lyft mentality. I'd say most of it is because I know that I entered with my phone number. I'm just more likely to pick up the paper towel I dropped. And honestly, that is more what we're trying to do. And then in the sort of extreme cases, warn. And we do sometimes revoke access for people that are repeatedly causing issues with.
I mean, that's the clever thing about the Uber passenger rating. I mean, as far as I know, they were the first people, certainly in mass, to do anything quite like that. And it made people actually be politer to the drivers than they ever were before, because you don't want to get rated badly. So moving on to the next thing. So tell me what family means to you. How does family look?
I have 4 young children. All the even numbers between 2 and 8. So we have a loud, chaotic, and messy home right now, and a wife that has supported me through 2 of these startups. And that, by the way, is a podcast in and of itself, how to maintain a healthy enough marriage through founding a company. I'm so lucky to have her and these 4 kids. And we live in just outside of the Philadelphia area.
Lovely. And what about health? So how do you keep healthy, whether that be mental health, physical health, nutrition, sleep? How does health look for you?
I'm lucky that my wife is very exercise prone and has kind of taught me that we all need to sort of take a break from the kids and exercise every day. So both of us trade off, I would say, with these kids, the ability to go play 3 hours of pickleball every day, which is probably what I would do at this point if I had the time, is harder. So I am probably every night jogging at night and thinking about work for about 25 minutes around my neighborhood. That is my current health, I would say, exercise routine. There is a balance. I wish I could do better with eating and other health related activities. I think not skipping lunch is really the best thing I do. And I don't do that necessarily intentionally, but there are some pros and cons to that. But I would say mainly it's trying to exercise every single day and trying to sleep at least 7 hours a night. Those are the 2 key things I work on.
And how about fun? What do you like to do for fun?
I am a social creature. For me, fun is getting out there and laughing a lot with friends or family, and often some form of competition. I mentioned pickleball, but I'm whether it's poker, bowling, some form of charades. I can be an intense charades player. I can say, and my friends would make fun of me, my bachelor party was a competition for who gets to be the best man at the wedding. And it was a 3-day multi-category competition. May the best man win. And so I'd say in general, when I'm having fun, it's usually creating some sort of competitive atmosphere with people that may or may not want to be doing that.
That's a fun bachelor party, a little different to most.
It was good. People, let's just say when you start a bachelor party with a 20-slide PowerPoint, some people are rolling their eyes, but by the end, they were all grateful for the structure of it, I think.
And how does a balanced life look for you? I talk about balanced life as really that center point. Very few people's lives are permanently imbalanced, but that sort of center point of balance.
Every second counts when you're running a company and running a family, or not running a family, a second in command in a family, let's say. And so the balance for me really comes down to efficiency. At this stage of my life, I'm starting to have this glimpse of I will regret, not being with my children in these moments more than even, a failure on the company side. And so every second I'm not working, I work from home, which is just this gift that some company founders can now do that probably couldn't before. I'd say it's the biggest difference between running the company I'm running now versus the in-office company I ran pre-COVID. And so the second I'm done, I'm downstairs kind of engaging with my children. And so for me, you have to make sacrifices. I am not cutting it up with my friends. Like I said, I like to do nearly as much as I did 5 and 10 years ago. I'm really just for this stage of life, and I know other stages of life will be different. It's company and family and about 1% other stuff. Even to me, I feel like health has been the thing that I've decided to deprioritize a little bit. And I'm just being honest. I sort of think you get 2 out of 3 of those to really focus on. And I think I wish I could balance a little bit more of the health side, but I'm very happy with the amount of time I'm spending with my children.
Fair enough. I think balance looks different for everyone.
Right. And I actually did have a founder once tell me you have to pick 2 out of the 3, health, family, and company. And I actually don't think that's good advice. I think I could do better at the health piece, but there's only, I think for me, health is just sleeping, right? I could sleep less and do more on the exercise front, but I think if you're going to just do one or 2 things for health, for me, it's sleeping and exercise, because those at least help reset your brain for work. Obviously, eating is the hard one and probably easy to do as well if you're really determined.
Yeah, and it's all about moving forward in the right direction. It doesn't, not always all going to be perfect. I think all 4 are important. So the 4 for me are work, family, health, and fun. Because again, there's no point in working hard if you can't have fun. You can't spend time with your family, and you need to be healthy because you want to be around long term. And I also am a big believer in healthy body, healthy mind. Doesn't mean you need to be perfectly fit, but I think, healthy body, healthy mind do go well together.
Yeah. And I think one thing I would expand on, I think, again, back to the efficiency, it's about the more you can combine those things in the same time. So I'm finding things I can do with my kids that I find fun and they find fun. I think that's an important one. Me and my son, Teddy, now go bowling about twice a week because he loves it. And I have competition. We find a way we add our scores together and try to break our previous record. So it's a different type of competition, right? But that to me, I actually have a ton of fun, and I'm starting to find things with my daughter. And similarly with health, I have a son who loves to just go in a stroller while I run, right? So I think one of the hacks is try to combine these things because you only have so much time in the day. But if you could do something that's fun and fulfilling with family or health, like walking while you're working on a treadmill, these are the hacks you have to do because yes, you can do all 4, but I think it's hard to do all 4 if you don't overlap time with any of them.
I think you're right. When I was living in LA, I had a standing desk and a treadmill. So I would hop on the treadmill for conference calls that didn't need a camera, and I worked out that actually it works really well. Right now, my daughter's come to stay with me for a month. We start every day with a 5K walk because she enjoys that. When I'm with my son, we go weightlifting in the gym every day. So yes, it's finding things that definitely allow us to combine. And what has been a pivotal moment for you?
For me, I think it was the birth of my 3rd child. So I only had 1 sibling growing up. I never could imagine having more than 2 kids. And the 3rd, let's just say I wasn't planning on it, but blessed when it happened. My wife tells me this all the time. You changed as a father when we had our 3rd kid. I think that's when I let go of, I'm still trying to preserve I need to go out with friends twice a week. And the things that fulfilled me in my, let's just say early to mid 30s, I had this realization that I can still be fulfilled. I just need to find different things to fulfill those. And what drives me is now going to be being a good dad and successful entrepreneur. But I think it was that 3rd child that sort of it's no longer possible to try to maintain the old life. And I think for me, when I had 1 and 2 kids, I was sort of stuck in this middle. So the turning point for me was having a third kid, and I've become happier and more fulfilled, kind of shedding that previous life to some extent.
Perfect. So how about the fourth kid?
Well, she's the forgotten child. If anyone has 4 kids, they understand this. She can raise herself, the toughest of them all by far. She's putting her own Band-Aids on when she falls off a scooter and skins her knee. So I'm kidding. Of course, she's the current love of my life. She's just so cute and fierce. Yeah, I don't worry. We haven't actually forgotten about her. It's just they need less rearing as the number goes up.
But it is funny. I mean, I've only got 2, but there's no question that even the second one, you realize they don't really break. So you sort of leave them to it a lot more, because the first one, you're worried that, everything is a problem. And then the second one, you're like, they'll be fine.
Totally. It's the only way to go. Yep.
And what's one piece of advice you'd give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
But is this a young entrepreneur or sort of someone who is later in life? Because I think they're different.
So why don't we get both?
Okay. If I actually think a young entrepreneur can weight things differently and can leverage their time to counteract their lack of experience. And I think the advice I would give, though, would just be use that. I think it does make sense to grind a lot, because you're going to have this opportunity. Hopefully, you can return money to your investors if it's an investment-focused venture. But at minimum, even if you fail, all those lessons are potentially going to lead to a much more refined approach the next time around. So get that done as fast as possible. Grind, find the failure. I think that is ubiquitous for any founder. Don't try to find the solution, try to find the failure points. Whenever investors ask you, what is the biggest risk of this company? Finish the call, think about the answer, and then focus only on that for the next week. I think those are the things that matter most and I think there's so many people I see building their MVP, focusing on the future vision and trying to build the thing that's going to work, as opposed to thinking about what is the thing that is most likely to make this company fail. Let's build just that. Let's use all our dollars to get to that answer and hope that it fails, because if so, we'll have an insight that we can then take to MVP too. In the same way that people studying theoretical physics, we try to find experiments that counteract our assumptions so that we can know which experiment to do next. And so I think that's the number one piece, and the most common thing that young founders struggle with is they're trying to find the solution, not the failure points.
Great piece of advice. And what's the other piece of advice you've got?
I think as you get older, perhaps, and I'm generalizing a little bit, but have a little less time. It is impossible to put 100 hours a week in if you have a family. But that doesn't mean you can't be just as successful. The answer is you have to start trusting people around you to do the stuff that you aren't superpowered at. And I think that was one of the biggest changes for me. I started my first company as a solo founder, and this time we have 3 founders. And so starting the company, so it started from the DNA, right? But find the right co-founders, hire the right early team, and let them cook, right? Like give them problems, not solutions. And if any of my employees are listening to this, I'm sure some of them are like, what about that time last week you told me to do X, Y, or Z? I'm not saying there aren't times where I feel that I have a specific insight, but in general, delegating problems and not solutions, and delegating in general is the way to not have to spend every waking second on the company and still add value.
Yeah, I think one piece of advice, or the first piece of advice I was ever given a long time ago when I hired my first employee, was you got to trust people to make mistakes, because you can't.
Right. Totally. And you might make a mistake doing it anyway, right? And you're more likely to do that if it's the 97th to 100th hour of the week for you. And so sometimes someone else who maybe has less experience than you is going to be better at doing what you're doing, because they can actually focus on it.
Very true. And how can people find you?
Well, I think we at Throne are really looking to expand to 10 new geographies. And so if you happen to be someone that thinks Thrones should be in your city, that would be the number one way I would like you to reach out at Throne. Go to our website at thronelabs.co, and there's a connection page there. LinkedIn is actually my place of choice. So look for me, Fletcher Wilson from Throne Labs on LinkedIn. If you're an entrepreneur, specifically the types of folks I tend to help are those focused on hardware. Hardware is hard. It's a whole different ball game trying to fundraise when you're having to build something physical. Happy to try to help people that are going on that journey.
Well, thank you for joining us today. I loved hearing your insights.
Really appreciate it, Leo. This was fun. Take care.
And thank you for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, tell your friends, and please leave a review.